Hi guys, and welcome to today's instructional video. So today we are talking all about the geography of Egypt. Remember, when we're talking about geography, we are talking about the natural resources that is provided by the earth in this area. So like I said, we're learning about the geography of Egypt and further to the south, Kush, so that we can analyze how geography impacted their development or their growth as a civilization. You'll know you've got it when you can tell me what the physical environment is, when you can describe the environment of Egypt, and when you can compare the geography of Egypt to the geography of the Fertile Crescent, and when you can describe how the physical environment directly affected Egypt. Egypt is a really interesting place because on several sides of it, we've got this desert that sprawls on for a long while. It's super hot, it's inhospitable for plants, meaning things can't grow there. It's difficult to live. But going through the middle of it, we have this river, and this is the Nile. The Nile is the reason that life is able to occur here in Egypt. As I tell you about the geography, I want you to be filling in your map, which looks a bit like this. Keep up with the work. Don't be afraid to pause the video. Don't be afraid to slow it down if you need to. And when you're finished, you'll submit your completed map with these 2 questions answered. But I want you to double check really quick. Did you go ahead and put your first and last name on your paper? Remember, we need to keep no names from happening. So I want to tell you a little bit more about the Nile because it is the heart of Egyptian civilization. Just like the Fertile Crescent, Egypt developed in a river valley, meaning it developed in the area around a river. The Nile River flows through that desert, like I said, and in ancient times it actually had 6 cataracts, or these areas with rocky rapids that were really dangerous that kind of look like this. You can see that's probably not a place you want to go with your boat. It made it impossible for invaders to travel up the river into Egypt. So it was kind of a natural barrier for them. The Sahara Desert on both sides of the Nile also protected the people in Egypt. So it created sort of a protected little pocket of land where they could grow things and where they could be protected from the bad guys. Now the river, just like in the Fertile Crescent, carries silt, these soil particles that are so good for farming. And when it slows down at the end of the river, it deposits that silt and creates a really fertile area for farming. That might sound familiar because that's what we saw in the Fertile Crescent. And every spring and summer, just like the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, the Nile flooded too. Every summer, heavy rainfall would happen near the start of the Nile River, which would cause the water to overflow. And when that flood water came up and then went away, it would leave behind a new layer of that fertile soil. Now, the issue is that flooding could be unpredictable, right? If you have too much, it can wipe away your crops, it can wipe away villages. And if you have too little, then you have droughts where there's not enough water and you could have your crops fail. So it was really important to Egyptians that the Nile River flooded regularly. Now I want you to go ahead and color in the water blue. So we've got a sea here, a sea there, and the Nile River. I want you to also make sure you label the Mediterranean Sea, the Red Sea, and the Nile River. You can use my picture as a reference if you need it. I also want you to go ahead and color in the desert that helped act as a natural barrier, a natural protection for Egyptians. So the desert will be like a light brown. I did dots so it looks like sand. And then I also want you to color in the fertile area around the Nile. It doesn't go out very far from the Nile. It stays pretty close, but we'll color that green because that's where crops grow easily. I also want you to make sure that you know how the Nile flows. So the Nile's a little weird. You would think that it would kind of flow from the north to the south, but the Nile flows in the opposite direction. So it actually flows up, it flows north. So I drew some arrows to show me that. I also want you to go ahead and label Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt. Now you might think that these 2 should be reversed, but because this is up the Nile River towards the start, we call it Upper Egypt, and Lower Egypt is towards the end of the river. So go ahead and label those areas too. Now I want you to go in and draw in little circles to show cataracts. Now there were a total of 6 in Egypt and Kush, but on this map we're going to focus on the first 3. So I've got one here, and one here. I drew some little circles to show some bubbly rapids and label them as well. Those cataracts were another natural barrier for Egypt. Invaders from the south, from down here, couldn't just go up the stream because there were these dangerous rapids that were really rocky and the water flowed really fast. But up here, Egyptians could kind of travel and trade and almost use the river as like a highway. I also want you to go ahead, there's a lot on this slide, so you may need to pause, but I want you to go ahead and draw and label the following things from your map key using my map as a reference. So you'll draw and label the pyramid at Giza. You'll draw and label the old kingdom capitals of Heliopolis, Memphis, and Abydos. Then you'll draw in and label the Middle Kingdom capital of Thebes. There are 3 different oases, like little areas where in the desert there's suddenly some water and some vegetation. There's 3 here. I also want you to go ahead, label in those limestone quarries. They're kind of along the river. Those granite quarries with little diamonds. And some gold between the second and third cataracts. Now, geography isn't just about what the land looks like. It's also about what the land provides and what resources it has. So Egypt had these oases. Like I said, they had these small fertile areas where there was water, where travelers could kind of pause on their way to and from Egypt. These became really important for farming if you weren't on the Nile River. In the south, near Kush, there were actually these gold sites too, and trading this gold made Egypt rich. But that wouldn't have happened if they hadn't had it to trade. Then you can see these granite quarries. Egyptians used this granite that they found in the environment to build temples, to build sculptures, to make obelisks and statues, which would impress people who came to their kingdom. And then along the river, these limestone deposits actually made it where, like, this is what Egyptians used at the center of their pyramids. It was easy to carve out from the ground and kind of haul away. Next, I want you to make sure that you label the desert. This is the Western Desert because it's towards the west. And this is the Eastern Desert because it's towards the east. Now we'll dot out some desert routes for trade. I used a red dotted line. You can kind of use mine for reference. Now, while these deserts kind of acted almost like walls to prevent bad guys from coming in, from invaders and conquerors from coming in and taking over Egypt, there were some special routes that caravan traders, basically people who were really adept at carrying trade throughout the different parts of Egypt and to different civilizations, these routes were what these caravan traders used. These routes are important because this is something that humans had to add to the environment to really thrive. They had to adapt or change. So they would use these routes to trade more. So they would trade wood, they would trade copper, they would trade limestone and granite and gold. And you would often find that towns and little outposts would pop up along the oases and these desert routes. And Egypt controlled these roads, which meant that they also got to control who traded and who got to pass through. Now, your map should be pretty much finished and it should look similar to mine. You might want to double check yourself by looking at the map key, making sure you've done everything on it, you've drawn it, you've labeled it. You may also want to kind of start at the top of my map and work your way down and see, do you have these things on your map? If you do, you can go ahead and answer these 2 questions on your worksheet. They are both for a grade, but you should have the info you need to answer both of them. Just to sum it all up, geography was really important for Egypt, right? It sort of decided what they were capable of, what kinds of things they had naturally to trade, and how they were able to set up their civilization. And the Nile is at the heart of it. Without the Nile, none of this could have happened. I'll see you in the next video.